We're here in Cambridge, England, with Stephen Cherry. He's the Dean of King's College, probably the most important musical venue for Anglican church music in the world. We've just had a wonderful supper together, and I just was thinking so much back to the beginning of COVID. Our music, Canon for Music, was in despair about just the COVID would be the end of choral music, that there would never be another chance for human beings to sing in quite the same way. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about your experience of COVID, just as we started to realize just how serious a problem it was for choral music.
I think when you think about the seriousness of COVID, you have to think really broadly, and I think I want to go just immediately back before COVID came here, when it was in China, and I remember being in the chapel and we were praying about it, and in a way irresponsibly, I think, because we were thinking it's a problem that somehow or other won't come
far away.
But I did say to someone in China, actually, we're praying, we're worrying about China, and she said, you need to worry about the world. A Buddhist nun, actually. And I thought that was quite a salutary thought. But when it did come creeping in our direction, and of course things were closed down, I think we were covered with anxiety and uncertainty. Anxiety because we really didn't understand the disease. We didn't know how to behave to limit the transmission. And then of course it became apparent that singing was thought to be a way of really transmitting the disease very quickly. And as you say, there was a kind of existential threat to the activity of singing, and particularly the activity of choral worship. Obviously, we've now moved a long way beyond that, and people are singing happily in each other's company. But I think the main question, Malcolm, what you said that I'm thinking about here is the existential threat to the kind of singing that involves children and maybe young adults.
Right.
Because the way in which we speak about it here at King's is that what we do is a product of relentless commitment and education. Formation day in, day out. My summary for this now is that it's a momentum model.
Right.
And so the boys who sing solos sing on a big occasion. There's obviously 16 boys who sing. Most of the music is carried by the top 5 or 6 of them.
Yes.
So that means that the other 9 or 10, they're in learning mode the rest of the time.
Right.
So the real worry has not been of the kids who already know what to do. It's been the lack of formation of the little ones.
Right.
And of course the worry about that is that would only play out over the course of several years.
Yeah.
And I think what people may fail to appreciate now is we're still in that zone.
Yes, right. Exactly.
So, the little kids or the big kids in the choir now didn't have the same formational experiences as their immediate predecessors.
Yeah, and we were so worried that we would never, that was what we were worried about, that the choir just wouldn't get back to the level and quality and standard that we had going into COVID, because it would take years and years to develop those skills again.
So I'm really full of admiration for what our director of music has done. Obviously we've talked about this stuff, we've thought it through one way and another. I think it's fair to say that the repertoire has been shrunk a little bit, been a bit more focus, going back to basics, and in some ways it's been renewing, because obviously we're not a cathedral, we're a college, we're all about education. And I think that's one of the beauties of our place and of the choir, that it's all about people in education. And what the COVID pandemic has done to us is, I think it's shifted us in such a way as to rebalance the priorities of excellence and education.
That's right.
And it's not to say we've pushed the excellence down, but I think we really understand that there's the education that makes for excellence is also part of the excellence. Right,
exactly. And that's completely the same with us. We have pared down our repertoire just for all those reasons. One of the wonderful things about being in London is the bookstores. The bookstore across the street from our hotel has your books in it. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about just being a scholar and a writer, and how you balance that with the ministry that you do at King's College.
Yeah. Well, most of my ministry hasn't been in an academic environment, so I think of myself, but primarily as a pastor, I suppose, who finds myself in interesting situations. But I would say that I feel a fairly deep vocational call to write, and I'm a curious person, but the scholarship is secondary to the writing.
Yeah.
In fact, when I was writing my first book, which is a book called Barefoot Disciple, I went through a process when I was writing it of realizing, and I articulated, I think what I'm called to be is not a theologian so much as a writer.
Yeah.
And that was quite a liberation for me, and it was to do with putting stuff into words that are that's truthful, valuable, resonant, motivating, inspiring.
Yeah.
And preaching is that, of course, but
Yes.
writing isn't just sermons written down.
Right.
It's something that people can experience in a spiritual or quasi-spiritual way, in a degree of privacy at their own pace and time and so on. But it is difficult to carve out the time, to do the reading, to do the thinking, the drafting, the editing. The word writing is such a flippant word. It's as if there's a blank piece of
Right,
paper,
you
then
just put
suddenly
words
there's a
on
full
it.
piece of paper.
Exactly.
No. It's a massive process. A lot of crossing out. But I think it's really. I feel good about doing it. I feel on some occasions completely demoralized and deflated because I don't know quite how it's going to go. But in this environment, I think to sort of commit to trying to write helpfully, truthfully, in a way that's accessible and deep is a good way to relate to people, to carry that commitment. And so I feel very serious about the time I contribute to that, as serious about that as I do about the time spent doing liturgy, being pastoral and doing administration and so on.
Yeah.
I think it's an important, those are the kind of four things I do, you might say.
I'm glad you said that. I think I'll make adjustments in my own life based on that advice. It's funny because I do also feel I'm part of the American Academy of Religion, and there's such a great scholarship that's being done, but it's without the commitment to being able to reach people that you described. I think that's one of the problems that we have with the Academy is just not taking the writing seriously enough. But anyway, I'm so grateful for this chance to meet with you, and thanks so much for talking with us. My name is Malcolm Clemens Young. I'm the Dean of Grace Cathedral in San Francisco, California. Thanks for watching More Good News. You're great.